สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Let's talk about family relationships. What can we do to improve them? Perhaps you've had a rocky past with somebody in your family. It could be a relative, a sibling, a parent, or a child. Perhaps there's some conflict going on or unresolved conflict, unresolved disputes, arguments, differing opinions, differing expectations, you name it. Of course, although these things are a natural part of life, especially in family life, but the point is, what happens if they happen too often? To the point where family members aren't really talking to each other anymore, or siblings have turned their backs on each other, for example, right? Now, first of all, this topic in and of itself is obviously a big one to chew, and there are so many different situations and contexts and dynamics and subtle cues involved. And those things deserve a whole discussion on their own. For example, what if you're dealing with somebody who's toxic, who's very manipulative, who's very opinionated, or who's a very difficult person to deal with? Now, that's a whole different issue, as I've discussed. For now, for this video, we're just going to focus on the common things that we can expect in an average family that perhaps you have experienced, or perhaps you know somebody who can relate to this conversation. Would you agree with me that, in one sense, one of the best things that we can do for another person is to meet them where they are at? Not to expect them to meet you where you are at. You see? Sounds simple, right? Sounds like a good idea, a great concept, but why is it so difficult to implement? Because you see, it's the human psyche, it's the human ego. We've got attachments, identities, sense of self, self-concepts, belief systems, values, attachment to our opinions on things that get in the way. So we often, unwittingly or in ways that we're not aware of or are not conscious of, unintentionally expect other members of the family, perhaps it's your sibling or a parent or a child, to see things the way you see them, you see. But you see, the wisdom behind meeting somebody where they are at is simply this. You're building trust and rapport with them. You're building trust. You're showing them that you respect them. You are showing them that you're happy and willing to be an active listener without judging them, without expecting them, without wanting them to change. I'm not saying that there's no that you shouldn't do anything or that you shouldn't take action, but I'm saying that there's a place for that. But that place must come from a truly well-meaning place, a constructive place. And there must be a skillful, artistic, so to say, way of communicating, a constructive way of communicating. But most people are simply just in the habit of wanting to enforce or force their own opinions, ideals, values, and expectations onto the other person, which is not listening. In other words, most people are listening in order to respond or reply or argue back. Few people are willing to listen to understand. You need to listen to understand, which means trying your best to really see it the way they see it, without judging them, without demonizing them. See it the way they see it. Try to see it through their eyes, through their perspectives. Try to understand their value system, their belief system, and be okay if it differs from you. Accept it, right? And if they're misguided, again, there's a place and time to talk, but that must come in a constructive way. But first, can you try to understand them just for the sake of understanding, right? Not judging, to understand why they think the way they do and feel the way they do. Because the truth of the matter is, nobody wants to try to understand you until you have made them felt that they are understood. And that's the secret to communication 101 right there. So this is an issue of active listening. And I borrow these concepts from Dr. Jordan Peterson, who in one of his video clips from a few years back, he explained active listening, where it essentially boils down to your ability to just sit there and listen to what they have to say, even if it means that they're gonna blame you and they're gonna judge you, right? Okay, and just be able to explain back to them or summarize to them how they see it and how they feel, and get them to actually agree with your summary. That's going to be difficult to do because it's going to come up against your ego for reasons just stated. So therefore, in order to be an active listener, in order to be a listener without judging, without wanting or forcing or pushing them to change, to be the way that you want them to be, to fit in the box of the family, you see what I mean? First of all, this therefore requires open-mindedness. And I remember this quote from somewhere. It goes along the lines of something along the lines of the mark of a truly educated mind is one which is able to entertain a different idea without necessarily accepting it as its own. Now, I think this quote has been attributed to Aristotle, but there are other sources that claim that Aristotle never said that. But regardless, I think this quote has wisdom to it. Are you able to just sit there and soak in and try to see things from a different perspective without necessarily having to react to it? This is what open-minded really is. Being open-minded is the ability to see things and accept them for what they are first and not judge them, wouldn't you say? And open-mindedness requires emotional self-awareness skills, emotional control skills, because your ego, your self-concept, your sense of identity, your value systems, what you stand for, what you believe in, your sense of family, right? The sense of my family is called into or is perhaps under threat. That's why it's difficult. So it requires being diligent in paying attention to your emotional state, noticing the connection between your own emotions that rise up should the other side say something that you disagree with, and watching it and being able to make the connections between these emotions and the value systems that you have, the perspectives, the opinions, the belief systems, and the attachments that you have that cause you to have those emotions, because essentially you feel under threat. If you think about it, in one sense, we only ever feel upset or we feel emotional in a negative way because we feel under threat in some way, shape, or form. It really boils down to that. It really is that simple, right? So it requires emotional self-control skills, emotional self-awareness skills to be open-minded and to be able to communicate back to them or summarize back to them what they're trying to say in a way that they also agree. And when you're able to do that, you will win their heart over sooner or later. Again, this requires practice, right? Because when things go against our egoic position and our egoic attachments and our sense of identity or sense of self, we're going to want to react. We're going to want to argue back. We're going to want to demonize them. And the list goes on. It's going to lead to arguments. But trust me, if you're able to remain calm and maintain your clarity, which means to not react to your emotions, but just listen, this will spill over in such positive ways that you will be amazed. That sometimes even conflicts that you thought would never be resolved can actually resolve itself sooner or later. Because sometimes it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's just simply about building trust, mutual respect, and showing that you care for one another. Because at the end of the day, most of us, if not all of us, actually all of us, really want to experience and feel loved and be accepted unconditionally. And active listening demonstrates to them that you care about them more than needing to be right. You see? And that's why it's very powerful. And from that place, maybe they will have a bigger chance to reciprocate and listen to you too. And maybe you can work towards building a common understanding. Or maybe you can even agree to disagree in a constructive and healthy way. And this itself will go so far because you will start to notice that you change other people, not because you try to force them to, because nobody likes to be forced into change, right? But you change them because you change yourself. You change the way you react. You change the way you respond. You change and you stop being judgmental in ways that you may not have realized. And speaking about this, oftentimes when we have a discussion, we're projecting our own way of seeing things and our own judgments out there in ways that we're not aware of. This can come in very subtle ways, such as should statements. You should do this. You should do that. You ought to be like this. You ought to be like that. Right? Your sibling was like this by your age. Your sibling got this career, got this job. Comparisons, judgments. These things are gonna put the other side on the defensive. It's gonna put up walls, and it's not gonna promote mutual trust, respect, and not promote the building of rapport, because they can't feel that they are trusted, that they can trust you to not judge them. You see that? It boils down to judgment, in other words. So, if you can get them to feel that you're not there to judge them, you're there to be, but you're there to be by their side, right? And you can show your opinions and your perspective when time comes, when they ask for it, or when there's a way to skillfully and constructively communicate it, then it will be received much better by the other side, rather than going right to arguments simply because one side wants the other to behave the way they see fit, in line with the box of the family, in line with the framework of the family. You see what I mean? And this is why it can be difficult, because it requires, you could even say, radical open-mindedness, right? Can you accept them for what they are, for how they are currently seeing the situation, their beliefs, their values, their feelings, their emotions, unconditionally? You see, you don't change others by forcing them to change. You stand a much better chance of influencing them by demonstrating yourself that you are an example of clarity, of calmness, of stability, of non-judgment, of emotional security, of love, of embrace. When you're able to demonstrate this, even if the other side is busy blaming you and judging you, if you're able to remain centered and calm and watch your ego and watch your emotions and don't react, sooner or later, you will start to see enormous positive changes in your relationships with your family members. And I know it may be difficult, especially in the beginning, before you start to see and notice the changes, right? Because our natural tendency is, when we're being judged, we want to defend ourselves, we want to attack back. But that doesn't serve the bigger goal. It doesn't serve the higher purpose. So try that. I hope this was valuable for you. Again, if you want to start to improve your relationships with others, family members, close ones, try your best to be an active listener. Establish rapport. Build mutual trust and respect. Make them feel safe to open up and speak to you. Make them feel safe to share their secrets with you. And in order to do that, you must be able to be an active listener without judging them. And that means seeing your emotions, seeing your value systems, seeing your ego, putting them aside for a moment. Being mindful of your facial expression as you hear them speak their mind. Because oftentimes judgment comes through facial expression. If you have a judgmental face or a disapproval face, I'm sure you can all imagine what that is like. A disapproving face that can be easily and quickly received by the other side as a form of judgment and disapproval, which communicates to them that the love that you have for them is not unconditional. and that does not help in establishing rapport, because you might be trying to listen, but your facial expression expresses your mood and your disapproval and your opinions and your judgments. So that's also why this can be a bit tricky. But again, practice makes perfect. Okay, so if you notice, this clip is focused on you being clear, having clarity, having emotional self-awareness, having emotional self-control, not attacking back, not needing to defend, right? Which goes back to many of our previous discussions, right? In one sense, if you get angry because your sibling or your parent or your child says something that is hurtful to you, or something that you feel triggers you, then in one sense, you're giving your power away because you're reacting to something outside of yourself. Take back that power. Take back that control. Remain grounded, remain stable, and demonstrate to them that you're able to sit here, listen to them with arms wide open, ready to embrace them for who they are unconditionally. And this will greatly help improve your family relationships, guaranteed. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Do share with me what you think. If you like the video, please give it a like. It will help me a lot. Share the video and comment and subscribe to my channel. I will see you next time. สวัสดีครับ